So, und eines der erwähnten Themen, bei denen die gesetzlichen Rahmenbedingungen noch so ein bisschen weil einfach die Entwicklung viel zu schnell gegangen ist, als dass der Gesetzgeber hätte Schritt halten können, sind Bitcoins. Was von der virtuellen Währung so zu halten ist, wie sehr sie unsere Welt schon verändert hat und in Zukunft noch wird, das erzählt Ihnen jetzt einer, der es wissen muss. Und zwar Maksim Izmaylov, Gründer und CEO von dem Schweizer Startup Winding Tree, das einen Blockchain-basierten Reisemarkt anbietet. Und falls Sie jetzt gar nicht wissen, worum es geht, die Lufthansa hat in dieses Startup letzten Herbst ziemlich kräftig investiert, da muss also was dran sein. Maksim, over to you.
Thanks so much. Hi everyone. Do I have a clicker? Perfect. Well, for the 16 people that are still in the audience and that aren't that interested in the politics, I'll tell you everything about blockchain. And you can tell I'm not a politician, I'm not quite a businessman. How? Look at my shirt, the top button, it's undone. So very easy to spot me. And today I would like to talk to you about Bitcoin and blockchain and all those exciting things that we don't quite yet understand. But let me tell you a little bit about the foundation that I've co-founded not that long ago, just a few months ago. Winding Tree Foundation is aimed to bring innovation back into the travel industry. It's a nonprofit foundation, and we're doing that by opening up access to the data, to the travel data that currently companies, startups don't have. And without open data, of course, you cannot have permissionless innovation. And that's something I will also talk about tonight. How do we do that? How do we open up the data? Of course, we're using a blockchain for that. In particular, we're using Ethereum for our own purposes. But today we'll be talking about blockchains in general and about Bitcoin in particular, because it's the most important, as of now, blockchain out there. It's been functioning for a long, long time, and it still delivers on its promises. Just a few days ago, I was in Berlin at another conference, blockchain conference to be exact, and with a group of people, we were visiting one of the first hacker spaces out there. I don't know, maybe you've been there or not. And this is an exciting installation that they have there. It's a few hundred bottles, glass bottles, that someone, I don't know who did it, put together. They put LEDs in those bottles. They attached, I think it's an Arduino computer, or maybe it was a Raspberry Pi, so small computer. And they programmed this installation to show all sorts of different patterns, and you can put a video in there. You can put I don't know, a video of a fireplace, and it's nice and cozy when it's there. And I saw that, and I was just amazed about how ingenious people are. People are putting together all sorts of different things. And right now, and the point of this installation is that right now, as we speak, there are hundreds and thousands of people out there that are doing things like this without asking anyone for permission, without a lot of money, without no funding at all in some cases. And that's the type of innovation that enabled us to be here in this building, on our phones, on our computers. It enabled us to learn about all sorts of different things on the internet within seconds. And of course, I'm talking about open source. So my story, my relationship with Bitcoin started in 2011, when my friend, a fellow software engineer, he told me about this amazing new currency that's out there, and it doesn't belong to any government. In fact, it doesn't belong to anyone. No one controls it. What did I say? Get out of here. What is this? Why do we need another currency? We have all sorts of, we have dollar, we have euro, we have rubles. Why do we need this? And I didn't listen to him, unfortunately. And a few years after, when I was living in San Francisco, and Bitcoin price was at $1,000 or something like that, and I called him up and I said, hey, when are we taking a trip on your new yacht? And he said, unfortunately, I sold everything. And it was a bummer, of course. But I was interested about this technology for a long time now. And speculation, by the way, is not something that I value in that particular space, and I will talk about that as well. But the point is, it's been a while. It's been almost 10 years. Next year is going to be 10 years that we have Bitcoin. We have this currency, and it's not just the currency, that no one is able to control. No one but the mathematical algorithm that runs on 12,000 computers around the world. And it consumes a lot of electricity, yes. And its price today is maybe ridiculous. But nonetheless, that technology is with us to stay. So let's talk about why it's important. Because our foundation educates companies and individuals out there about the importance of this technology and how it's going to change businesses of travel companies and other companies in the world. Can I please have the next slide? Thank you. I think about the type of innovation that Bitcoin and blockchains bring to the table as waves. And there were 3 waves that I think changed the world completely. Well, probably there were more, but the waves that are related to the technology, to computers, there were 3. So the first wave is, of course, the computer. And all those 3 waves have one property, very, very important property. So this on the picture here is what was called ENIAC, right? It was the first computer. IBM used these computers back in the day, and those computers were used in the Second World War, and it was groundbreaking. That technology was absolutely phenomenal, and it did a great job. And this technology evolved into what we have today in the palm of our hands, right? But why are we able to have those smartphones, those little computers in our hands today? It's very important. Not a lot of people know about that, but there were a few people that wanted to patent this computer. It was people that worked, in fact, on the creation of this computer. And the litigation around this patent that they wanted to file, it was dragging for almost 20 years. But at the end, the people who actually created this computer were able to prove that this idea, the idea of a computational machine, is not something that should be patented, and in fact, it existed long before those 2 gentlemen filed for the patent. And that's precisely why we have those computers, why we have the abundance of computational power today on our hands. Because if someone patented the computer, imagine what would have happened. Let's say IBM or someone else owned the patent for the computer for 60 years. We would have one device with very limited capabilities. I don't even think we would have that device. You know, I think computers would still be gigantic and enormous, and they would run very slow. So the second wave, and on the screen here you have Tim Berners-Lee. Some people call him web developer. Quite literally, he's a web developer. He's the guy who created the World Wide Web, or the first protocols that all of us use today, all the time. In fact, you are not even touching your devices right now, but your devices are constantly connected to the internet, and they're using the technology that this guy helped to create. And yet again, this particular technology is not and wasn't owned by any one corporation or individual, despite the fact that Tim Berners-Lee invented this technology inside CERN, inside the European Organization for Nuclear Research. And they could have done that. They owned all the IP, they owned everything, but they said, no, this technology belongs to the public domain. We don't want to own it. And in fact, there was another protocol, a competing protocol from the University of Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. And it was called the Gopher Protocol, and maybe there are some enthusiasts that run that protocol on their devices today. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to license it. It wasn't open source. It wasn't in the public domain. It was closed. And they wanted to charge a fee for you to run an installation of their software on your server. And Tim actually, his invention happened a little bit even later than these guys came up with this idea. But, and that protocol was widely popular. Read up on that. That story is fascinating, as interesting as the story about computers. But still, the World Wide Web with HTTP and other protocols, other technologies that Tim Berners-Lee was working on, they've won. Simply because it doesn't cost you anything to interact with that technology. You can go on the internet and you can build things using that technology. You can combine those technologies in any way you want. And well, that's what enabled the internet boom. That's what enabled the permissionless innovation on the internet. And without that, we wouldn't be here. Not without the first wave, not without the second wave. And now what we have is the third wave, the next wave of decentralization. Could you please just change the slide? Thank you so much. The third wave of decentralization with this technology that was called blockchain. The name of that technology is very unfortunate. It's very confusing. I say blockchain and you start thinking about blocks and chains, but it's all irrelevant to what it does, right? Internet is kind of makes sense. Well, it's some sort of network and everything is interconnected, but blockchain, what is it? A lot of people are still confused about it. And precisely because of the name. But there is nothing confusing about it. You don't need a computer science degree to educate yourself about it. That technology is very simple. But let me talk a little bit about again, that property that technology doesn't belong to any one company. And in this particular case, it's crucially important. Blockchain wouldn't happen if one company owned it. And in fact, it prevents companies and organizations to own Bitcoin, for example, today. So in 2009, on January 3rd, 2009, the anonymous creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, we still don't know who it is. It's definitely not that guy from Australia. They mined the first block of the Bitcoin blockchain. And that event was motivated by the political reality at the time. Satoshi Nakamoto, he wrote several articles on different mailing lists and everything. And that event was definitely motivated by the political situation. He didn't like economical situation, I'm sorry. He didn't like the fact that banks own the currency. They can do anything with it. You have your money in the bank. Well, if bank goes under, you don't have that money anymore. They definitely don't belong to you in this particular case. So he created this system where, well, if you have 10 Bitcoins, let's say, and you know how to operate with that technology, you know how to work with it, no one can take those Bitcoins from you. It's impossible. And he designed this amazing system using cryptography, game theory, a set of incentives for everyone to participate in this system. And that event has changed the world already. And it will continue changing it. And this wave, I think, will be at least as profound, at least as transformative as the second wave, the internet. maybe more, maybe bigger. We'll see to that. So let's talk about why it's hard to understand Bitcoin. For a lot of people still, Bitcoin means pornographers, criminals, all sorts of different crazy people on the internet accepting Bitcoins as currency. But Bitcoin is much, much more than just currency. The problem is that, well, very often people are just driven by greed. But if you go beyond that, if you try and understand how Bitcoin works, it's truly transformative. Some investor from New York that I met at another crypto conference in Israel, he was talking to me about this moment of enlightenment that he got when he learned about what it is, why it's different, why it's important. It's not just a currency, definitely not. So he was talking about it even in religious terms in some cases. That was quite interesting. But let's definitely talk about why it's important. The idea behind Bitcoin, one of the technologies that Bitcoin is based on, blockchain, will disrupt all kinds of different networks that humans have created. It is already replacing the government monopoly on currencies. It's already happening, and that change is profound. Just think about it. Just think about governments losing the ability to monopolize their currencies. And I know a few people, and in fact, our company works with a few organizations that already accept all sorts of different cryptocurrencies as payments. For example, our lawyers accept Ether. They do not rely on Swiss francs, on euro, on United States dollars anymore. No, they can operate with cryptocurrencies. And humans are networked species, right? So we've created all sorts of different networks. Well, anything that you can think about is probably a network, right? It's a social network. It's a network of people that are here right now. It's religion. Religion is a network. All those people are connected by certain ideas. And blockchain, with the idea of removing the intermediary, in the case of Bitcoin, removing banks from the middle of a financial transaction, can be applied to all those networks, not just to currencies or financial transactions. Well, that's precisely what we do at our company, for example. Because travel, you may or may not know that, is a very, very centralized industry. There are very few companies, 5, 6 companies, that help to transact all the hotel bookings or all the airline bookings, pretty much everything. And they have a tremendous amount of power. And they charge very, very high fees. So, and if I can have that screen on my monitors over here, that would be really helpful. And as I said before, blockchain and Bitcoin, well, it's not rocket science. Yes, if you want to dig very deep into how it works, it's a fascinating, fascinating mechanism. As I said, it uses cryptography, it uses game theory, it uses all those secure hashing algorithms that you don't know about. And very, very exciting math behind that. I am fascinated by it. I keep learning about that. I'm not there yet. So this is a picture that kind of explains Bitcoin and blockchain in a nutshell. So on the left, of course, you have any type of centralized system, whether it's a bank or the government monopoly on issuing money, a GDS or OTA from the travel space, anything, right? Where there is a central point of failure. In the blockchain space, we call those nodes in the middle trusted third parties. right? And trusted third parties, well, they bring a lot of problems to the table. For example, if that node in the middle on the left picture goes down, it's not functional anymore for whatever reason, well, the whole network dies out. It doesn't work anymore. Or if there is a malice in that node, and that is happening all the time, and that's what Satoshi Nakamoto was upset about, by the way. Those nodes, they concentrate a lot of power. Well, let's take Equifax, for example. They leaked 140 million identities of people from the United States, and my identity as well. And did they go to jail? Were they fired? Those people that were responsible for that absolutely horrible leak? No, they got bonuses. Were people from the Wall Street, from all those banks after the 2008 crisis, fired for what they've done? Did they go to jail? No. They got a few $1 billion for their banks, so the economy doesn't collapse. Well, that's precisely the type of problem centralized network bring to our life. And again, we have to have those networks. We are networked species. We have to be connected. And so there are two more topologies here on the screen. One is decentralized and one is completely distributed, right? And blockchain is precisely that distributed topology, where it doesn't matter whether 1, 1,000, half of all the Bitcoin nodes go down today. It doesn't matter. The network is still functional. What's more important is that no node in that network is in charge. Everyone is equal. No one can dictate their rules. And that's crucially important. We don't have the problem of the monopoly on the power in those human networks that we use. So let's talk about this decentralized or distributed reality that this technology, blockchain, allows us to live it. So we already have Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, I can send any of you here a certain amount of Bitcoins, that's money, at any time. I don't have to ask anyone. I don't have to go to the bank so they can take my identity, scrutinize whether I can send that transaction or not. And anyone here, hopefully you guys use internet sometimes, you can do that too, very easily. Within 5 minutes, you just download an app on your phone. So how did blockchain and Bitcoin change the world already? What we're looking at today is, Andreas says it very well, and by the way, if you are curious about blockchain and Bitcoin in particular, Andreas is a great guy. He educated the Parliament of Canada about Bitcoin. He wrote several books about this. Just snap a picture of this. Follow him on Twitter. He's phenomenal. Public key cryptography is, again, something that all of you here use all the time without even knowing it. When you register a Gmail account, when you try and send a message on WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal, you use that technology. But Bitcoin and other blockchain systems force you to understand how it works, force you to understand how public and private keys work. And as of today, I've heard the statistics that about 100 million people use crypto in various forms. So 100 million people had to educate themselves about public key cryptography today. Well, it turns out money is a great motivator. I think it's a great thing. But again, blockchain technology is far more important than just money. Another interesting fact that many millennials today, when they're asked about whether they would want to receive $1,000 in dollars, Bitcoin, gold, or other commodities, many of them use Bitcoin. Bitcoin is millennials' gold. That's what I've heard multiple times. And it's very interesting. So again, younger people, younger generation is excited about this technology already. And probably you, for your research, for your companies, we always talk about, oh, what do millennials do? Where the new generation is going? And well, here's your guidance. There's another guy, his name is Nick Szabo, and he's another person that I would definitely recommend to follow on the internet, read his blog, read his tweets. He writes about social scalability. Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks to you. He talks about social scalability. There's a term, it's called the Dunbar number. It's a number that number of people that humans can interact with without losing connection, right? So 150 is the limit of people that you can be connected at any point in time, right? Those people come and go, of course, all the time. And Nick Szabo, in his research, and he's one of the inventors of BitGold, by the way, the precursor to Bitcoin. And without him, the blockchain industry would not happen at all. So he argues that blockchain as a technology on a completely different level allows us to collaborate effectively in large groups, if I can borrow Yuval Harari's words. And so right now, the Bitcoin network has 12,000 nodes. By far, it surpasses the Dunbar number, by a few degrees. And those networks allow us to do that right now. Blockchain, without a central party controlling all that communication. ICOs, you've heard about that. Be warned, I do not recommend you to participate in any ICOs. You should do your own research. That's the fundamental philosophy of Bitcoin and blockchain. But it's a very, very exciting funding mechanism. Again, now you don't have to go to Silicon Valley and pitch a series of VCs that get all the deals in Silicon Valley because you have no choice. It's another network for funding, right? So now, by using this new tool, you don't have to go and pitch to VCs. Put your information online. Allow people to look up everything about you, what kind of person you are, what kind of team do you have, what your vision is. And ICOs as a funding mechanism already surpassing all the angel and VC funding. I think it's phenomenal that this technology allows us to do that. One of the things that I care about a lot is inequality, and today our societies are designed, our economies are designed for the winner-take-most type of economy. And this is a great game from Bloomberg that they've just designed. It's called the American Mole. Have you played it? Anyone? It's very exciting. You have to survive, basically. Tenants leave, you have to decrease their rent and stuff like that. And guess what happens at the end? Well, of course, Jeff Bezos cackling, ha, 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 right? Well, that's what is happening to many, many companies and many, many networks. Amazon is just one example, right? So we have Google that controls all your search, all your email, all your documents. Amazon that dominates the cloud services. Facebook, that is our social network of choice. And in the United States, Facebook right now is under scrutiny by many people, not just by political parties. Imagine if Mark Zuckerberg wanted to run for president, what kind of messages you would see in your feed. Of course that Mark is great, right? And everyone else sucks. Uber. I'm not going to touch that. It's a separate point in my presentations. And back to Wall Street. The corruption of that particular network runs very, very deep. And there are movies about it and articles, and this is a great article about how Wall Street lobbyists and Wall Street banks bribe economists. And they've been doing that for decades now in order for politicians to pass legislations that are favorable to banks and credit organizations, for example. And again, blockchain helps us with that, can help us. Blockchain can help us with politics as well. As Stalin said a while ago, it doesn't matter how you vote, it matters who counts those votes. And it's inherently that problem, the monopoly on counting votes, is with our governments today. I mean, look what's happening in Venezuela and Argentina and Russia today. What if we replaced those counting monopolies with systems that no one entity, no one organization, no one individual will be able to control? And that's what my friends from Democracy.Earth are working on. Not just that, many other things, but this is one of the most exciting projects out there in the political sphere. This is the travel industry, how we see it. Blockchains help us with that. This is work in progress. We haven't solved that yet, but we'll get there. And if you want a glimpse of the future about what cryptocurrencies mean, what it means to be a sovereign individual, I definitely recommend reading this book. I'll take a few seconds so you're able to snap a picture of that. And on that note, I would like to finish with saying that educating yourself about this technology, because blockchains and Bitcoin is here to stay, is the smartest thing that you can do today. And read those books, look up those people that I've mentioned. Don't trust me. Maybe this technology is going to fail. Do your own research. Thank you.
Thank you, Maksim. I might even understand blockchain one day if I listen to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Next one is waiting already.